I'm Andrea. I am a Latina in higher education and student affairs, hence a Latina in HESA. And this space is really for me to discuss and debrief and process my graduate program and my academic experience as a graduate student. I am a full-time graduate student in a higher education program, but I also have a little over 10 years of professional experience, half of that being in student affairs, the other half being in marketing. And so the reason that I'm making this video is because I just finished a mindfulness workshop. One of the things that I really enjoy about my program is that, yes, we have the traditional 3-credit classes and we have, our requirements and all of those good things, but a lot of our electives, we have the option to take 1-credit workshops, and this was one of the ones that I took for this semester. So this, again, the workshop that I took and that I will be kind of debriefing is this workshop in mindfulness in schools, in mindfulness in education overall. I'm focusing on mindfulness in higher education since that's what my program is in, but some of my classmates are teachers in like traditional K through 12. Some of my other classmates are working with like student athletes. So there's definitely a variety in my class, or was a variety in my class. The class was, because it's a 1-credit, it's only a weekend class. So I had class last night, and then I had class this morning and this afternoon. So I think for me, it was important to take this class. And I think that it was also a great coincidence that this was one of the first workshops that are scheduled in my spring semester schedule, because it had me thinking about and really affirming my own practices with mindfulness. I will say the class is probably geared more towards like folks who probably are very new to mindfulness, or if they're not that new, they have kind of heard of it and may have dabbled but may not have like a consistent practice. I think that for me, so basically in the class, or in the workshop I should say, it was an introduction to a variety of practices. So we did like breath work, we did like a body scan, PMR, but we also like very, very broadly and on the surface learned a little bit about the history of how mindfulness comes to the United States. I don't remember their names off the top of my head, I'm gonna be so honest with you, but essentially we learned about like the institute at UMass, the institute at Harvard. We talked a little bit about mindfulness with specifically with like younger students, like K through 12. And so for me, again, it was really affirming to kind of like hear about these practices being mindfulness practices, and knowing that like I have worked my way to really owning some of these practices. For me, breath work is something that is for me probably a little bit more manageable than meditation. Essentially my takeaway from what mindfulness is just like it's being present, it's being aware of like where you are, and not necessarily who you are, but like where you are, like your surroundings. And there is a component of self-awareness, but like you're not necessarily questioning it. A big part, I think one of my biggest takeaways from this workshop is thinking about mindfulness in that it really allows us to practice being non-judgmental. And something that for me that I'm working through is definitely moving from being so judgmental to being curious. And so I don't think mindfulness is necessarily about curiosity. I think mindfulness is more so about like accepting and being present. And so that's kind of what I took away from the class. And again, also kind of like this reaffirmation of like, for me, the practices or the habits really that I have gained in the last couple of years have been really helpful for me in being a more present person, and being more just like here rather than like worrying about the future or worrying about the past or ruminating or anything like that. Part of our final project, or for our final project, essentially we're creating a plan of action on how we are integrating mindfulness into either our personal lives or our professional work, place of work. And I know that I think I'm gonna lean towards the workplace for my final project, just because like I think that's something that I've again have already been doing. I think about like the trainings that I have, or the trainings, the presentations, um, even like the one-on-ones, like how important it is for me to make sure that students are either being introduced or are in the practice of like being present and like really thinking about how what they're doing should, or not should, because should implies judgment, but like how it can be intentional, and like thinking about like intentionally about what we are doing, what we are thinking, and things like that, how we are engaging with one another, how we are in relationship with one another as community builders, because that's a big part of student affairs, right? So I think for me, essentially, again, the part of like integrating mindfulness into my own personal life, again, I think this workshop like really ended up affirming that like the things that I'm working towards and like being more intentional or being more present are things that I'm already doing. That they are habits that again may not be perfect, and that's actually not the goal. The goal is not to be perfect. The goal is to acknowledge and to be present, and to just like be a little bit more human. And so for me, I think about mindfulness, like for example, something a habit that I formed that is still kind of like shocks me a little bit, is how essentially in 2020 I started practicing, not necessarily practicing yoga, but I did start like adding stretching to my morning routines. And that's a routine, or that's a habit that I've kept with me ever since. It really started off as like something that I felt like I need something for myself. I need something that will calm me down. I need something that will ground me. And when I started doing like these stretching movements, I could barely do like 3 to 5 minutes. Like it would, especially because I was like working from home, I felt like I needed to be like readily available all the time and all these things. But as time has gone on, I'm now at the point where it's not that much more, but like I the benefits that I felt when I was like, oh, I could only do up to like 5 minutes, I'm now up to like 15 to 20 minutes, because I am not just enjoying the practice, but like it's become so ritualistic for me to be able to start my mornings off that way. And sometimes even at night, I need to stretch. And especially as I am getting older, like being more limber, yeah, and like flexible, and just like agile is very important to me. So I think of mindfulness out in that way. I also know that for me, like for example, meditation is is definitely difficult. Like and I think that we acknowledge that in the workshop, right? That like mindfulness is not like it's not easy, or it's it's a practice. And that's what, if you're not consistent with the practice, it's never going to be a practice. It's never going to be quote unquote easy. Even like one of the guests that came in, she was like, you know, meditation is very physical. Like it's hard to sit for like 5, 10, an hour, 10 hours. She talked to us about this like meditation retreat that she did, that she was like meditating for 10 hours a day, and like that really blows your mind. But again, for me, being meditation is not like the best practice for me. What gets me into my body, what gets me into like my awareness of myself, and like what just like kind of grounds me for me is like movement. So like again, stretching, dancing is very like meditative for me. So I think that again, this idea of like how am I introducing mindfulness into my life, like is actually kind of a reflection of like how am I already doing these things, because I am, and how can I make sure that I'm embodying these things that are important to me, so that when my students see me and when they're engaging with me, that they understand why this is important to me. So those are my thoughts on mindfulness, and my mindfulness workshop for my graduate program in higher education. Again, thank you for watching. Yeah, like, comment, subscribe, all those great things. So I'll talk to you after my next class. Bye.